What's up, men? Welcome to the Male Cartel podcast. Let's get started.
Do you think men are important? Like for what?
Men are not meant to be dominant. Men are meant to be submissive.
Life's too short to exercise. I'm just going to be honest.
It's okay to be fat.
Dispelling toxic masculinity and really redefining what it means to be a man. Men can cry. So it's okay to be weak. It's okay to be weak.
I'm telling you right now, not everybody wants to see you win.
You seem to be more woman than you are man. You don't have any manly qualities.
You give them this message that it's okay to be a man.
It's not okay, it's necessary. How are we going to do without men? You look around the city here, you see all these buildings go up, these men, they're doing impossible things.
It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Be a dangerous man. Being dangerous is not being a threat. They're two different things. You can't be a good man if you're not a dangerous man. You say one disrespectful thing to my wife, I am not only willing, but I'm able to inflict great bodily damage.
I'm going to do everything in my power to become a victor and not a victim. I can't explain it, but you better feel me. Winners win and losers lose. I can't explain it any better than that. I don't know how it happens, but winners win. And if you create a culture of losing, if you keep being a victim, if you keep letting losing happen to you, if you keep letting people do you and treat you any kind of way, it's going to become a culture. What's the matter with you? There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
Here's your host, Nick and Shane.
Welcome back, Cartel. We're so great to be with you today. This is Nick, and I'm here with my buddy Shane.
Let's go.
I hope everybody's been doing well. We have been off for a few weeks because we recorded the episode with Coach early. Man, that was a great time, Shane.
Man, it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Just imagine if he was live and not via the internets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we had some little bit of issues.
Yeah,
first time doing remote.
But we're learning, though. Isn't that part of being a man? We learn.
It is.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, about the duties of a man.
Yeah, I'm excited. The duties. Coach was phenomenal. I think, the locker room talk was awesome. So I subscribed to all his things, all the things, became a huge fan of Coach. And so he's liked a lot of my things. So, Coach, if you're listening, I appreciate you liking my things. I'm waiting until I do something wrong, and I expect you, Coach, if you're listening, for you to call me out, coach me up.
Coach you up?
That's right.
He is active on social media. Man, it meant so much after we got off because, like I said, we connected and met several years ago. Just for him to have said, I pray for you every day.
Yeah.
That meant so much. I think the thing I liked the most was just his humility. And really where he's talking about the part, because we've all been there. I could do this better. I can do better than my boss. I can do better than whatever, the lead pastor, the head coach. And he went from that to be one of the most encouraging, coaches and building people up and encouraging, talking about being able to speak positive about a guy in front of his wife and things like that. And that means a lot. Yep. When someone speaks about another man positively in front of his family and his wife, I think that's huge.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. Humility was through the roof. I mean, literally through the roof. So I'm reading the book now. I got my team. They were all reading this book, and I'm in chapter 2. So, Coach, I'm putting the work into the film study, so just let you know. And just, you walked away encouraged. And really, I think, you know how it is, Nick. When you're a little boy, you're always looking at movies, like Rambo and like Superman and, and people like that. And John Wayne, Westerns.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember watching people on the TV or even like my uncles, people who were much, who were in my life involved. And you look at them and you go, man, I want to be like them. You know what I mean? Or certain aspects of who they are. Oh, I want to be like that or be like, or look like that, And so I came away with that even with Coach, just as a man, again, looking at him and just being so humble and him being so wise from taking his failures and actually using them to be as strengths now, I just love that. I was like, man, I hope that I have a lot of wisdom like Coach.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and that's what a coach is all about. I've told people that before. Coaches help you see what you didn't see.
Yeah.
In the middle of the game, you missed a tackle or you missed a pass or whatever that might be. They see that, they help coach you up to that. And I think that's where a good coach comes in, is not only being able to see in real time, but being able to see things ahead of time because you've lived that, you've been there, and coaches got more years than we do in life. And so there's things he's experienced. It's like, hey, I can tell you what's going to come with that.
Yeah.
I can tell you if you make that decision, it's not going to go well. I had a situation not too long ago where I was trying to coach a guy. And I was like, dude, if you make that decision, if you do that, here's what's going to happen. And it almost gave like 4 or 5 steps of this is going to be the conversation. This is what's going to happen. And the individual did not take my advice, and almost perfectly. And I'm not saying this like, pat myself on the back.
Yeah.
I've just lived enough life that I have seen enough stuff, I've experienced enough stuff to go, hey, this is what's going to happen. And almost 100%, the conversations that I said would be had were had. The fallout was the fallout. And then, it caused a lot of problems for the individual.
But man, Nick, I think we're coming out the gate strong, but it's the truth. It literally is so true. And I think our profession, what we do, that's, we're the Male Cartel, but we have these other jobs and deals with people. It deals with people not only like physically, but emotionally, spiritually, on all the different factors. And so there's no escaping people and humanity. We're always seeing problems every day. And so you when you get 2 decades in, there's not too many things you haven't seen or have experienced, either firsthand or secondhand involvement. So you do pick up those things. And so I think you're 100% correct. And I think the other thing too that's astonishing is that we have children. We have sons. And so since we're talking about males, a lot of the times, we look at our sons and we say, son, this is how it's going to end. And then our boys look at us like, Dad, you don't know. Young men that I see that I coach, like in sports and my involvement with young men for the past decade, they look at you like, Coach, you don't know anything. And there's a sense of arrogance, but also like, well, you're going to find out the hard way, And then, as we get older as men, they're still grown men, not boys,
right?
But like people who pay their bills, and they still do the same things they did when they were like 14, 12, 16 years old. And it's like, will you ever learn? Like somebody who's actually been there before going, hey, I've seen this tape many of times. I'm just going to tell you this, not so that I'm right and you're wrong, but if you mess up, we all lose. Right. You're going to be better. We're all going to be better for your wins. You win, we all win. And but it's like, no, you don't know me. You don't know my situation. You're like, okay.
Well, yeah, the downfall always affects more than, and that I think there's 2 mentalities with that. Is one, people think it's not going to happen to me. I'm smarter, wiser, whatever. And then the other is we think if there is any fallout, it's only going to the fallout's going to be on me.
Yeah.
And I'll just deal with it because we think the pleasure in the moment, the convenience in the moment, whatever it is going to be worth it, but it always affects other people. And until you get burned enough, you hit, as they say, hit rock bottom. I remember a story with Tristan, and he has just kind of always been that. He's more like myself, maybe a little hard-headed.
OT baby.
But sometimes you got to learn the hard way. And I remember us telling him to be careful. He was sitting on the counter, and the stove was hot. It had been, used, and so it's still cooling down. I was like, "Hey, don't touch that because it's hot." And I remember him looking at his finger and watching it, and going up in the air, turning it towards the stove, and then touching it. And of course, it burned him. It's like, I can't even feel bad. I told you, and I watched you watch your finger. Like, well, I'm going to show you.
Yep.
And he ended up getting burned. And so part of it is, partly you want to laugh and go, what are you thinking? What are you doing? The other part, you go, it's hard for me to feel bad because I just told you, literally got it out of my mouth. If you touch that, it's going to burn. And that's why it's hard sometimes to maintain compassion and empathy when you're like, well, I told you.
Dude, that is 100%. You know, I think I mean, if you can play, dumb games, you're gonna win the
prizes.
Dumb prizes. And it's not gonna be awesome prizes, that's for sure. How was your week? What have you done this past week?
It was busy. I mean, that's like a bonus episode. They get that and didn't even pay for it.
Didn't even pay for it.
Yeah, they're not paying for it. Only thing we ask is people to go subscribe, give us a review and a like,
and then share that. If you enjoy our episodes, share it.
For sure.
Encourage other people.
But yeah, it's been busy. And I will say also before I get into catching up from last week, if you did not go and have listened or watched episode 4. Go check it out. The video has got a little issues just because this is our first time doing remote, but please go check out that episode 4 with Coach Mills. You'll love it. You'll enjoy it just by listening. We just ask questions, let him talk, and we learned so much through just him sharing his stories. But yeah, we had ladies' night, and it wasn't a part of the program last week. As far as for them to announce that we sponsored that. And so I sent you that photo, put that up at the end of the night so that they knew who sponsored the ladies' night.
We believe in the ladies.
That's right. We support the ladies, but we had that event at our church, and that's something Nikki started several years ago. It started very small, and many people may know who the Chewbacca mom is, but that was Candace Payne. She went viral several years ago, putting mask on that she found. She was taking something back to the store, found that on clearance or whatever, and she put it on, and I guess didn't realize what it would sound like or what it would do with the camera. And so the camera's rolling, and she puts the mask on, and it starts making the Chewbacca noise. Well, she starts laughing, and the more she laughs, the more Chewbacca noise it makes. And it just went on, and it brought so much joy to people. And so she was interviewed by night, the different comedians at night, the different, news stations, things like that. She's hilarious. And so this is the second year she came. Great lady. Her talk with the ladies was, she mixes humor in it, but it was great. It was very strong talk and very strong message. So we had a good time, not only hanging out with her, but also last week was all about setting up for that, getting everything ready for that. So it was a very busy week. But it was very good. How about yourself?
Man, yeah, just came from a conference. Busy. We got the dub on Friday night.
Nice.
So pumped. Yeah, man, it was 5-6 at halftime.
Was that Grovetown?
It was.
Evans Grovetown?
That's right, Evans Grovetown. So I served at Grovetown for many years, and then at Evans, and so that's the first time I've ever been on the away side of things. And 5-6, and I gave a good talk that I've got to probably use it again. It was like so good. I felt like I was, part of the win, like really, really helped. But it was fun. So we scored 21 unanswered points. The defense showed out. So pretty pumped about that first win in region. And then busy Sunday, like normal, but slamma-jamma with Kidsmen, and then went in with a solid 2 days in Atlanta, part of this coaching network up there with youth leaders. And it was awesome. Ate a lot of food. Literally a lot of food. Like I haven't eaten.
Fed you well. They
fed me very well, dude. And I have a spiritual gift of eating. So like, I can eat a lot. So, but it's good to be back home. Man, we ate some chicken wings that Monday night and had a lot of fun being with my team, who I'm the oldest by like 6 years. And that's the next person. And then everyone else under that is like 30 years old. And then there's like one's 25, and then there's like 3 guys that are 20, 21 on my team. And so there's some young bucks. The young bucks kind of gravitate towards each other. And then I'm always roasting everybody. And so it's a lot of fun. Love those guys.
Yeah, I was at my Hope Church Pastors meeting yesterday, and we do a good bit of that. We've talked about that before. Women can't do that. In fact, when we were on our retreat, guys share like, man, I'm struggling with this, or this is a sin I've been dealing with, so that, as scripture says, we can confess our faults one to another. So it might be healing. And then the next day, those become memes that are shared through our group text. It's like, I don't think women could get away with that. They're too, emotionally connected and tied. And so we have a good time with roasting one another. And really, that's where there's good chemistry because nobody gets offended, nobody gets upset. And it's some pretty serious stuff that we put out there too.
Well, I think that's the one thing I try to tell people all the time is like not take yourself so seriously. Life's a little too short for that, and never promise another day. But if you can't laugh at yourself, that already tells you your mental state. And I'm a pretty serious guy. So are you. Yeah. And we're very firm in our stance on, especially on a lot of things. And we can just a drop of a hat go serious mode on somebody or situation, etc. But laughing at yourself sometimes, it's really good. I got up off the table. I wasn't actually laying on the table. I got from the table, I guess you could say. And then I got from the table. I was like, "What?" And one of our staff guys named Grant, he and I were talking for a long time about being a dad. We had, and he's he's like 40, and so we have a lot of similarities at this point. And then down the table is nothing but all the young guys. And it just worked like that, and so got up, and then I went to the restroom and came back, and I just like did a little yawn, and then they immediately was roasting, was like, "Well, Dad says, oh, I guess it's time to go.
Time to go. Dad's ready.
Dad's ready." And so I thought that was so funny, but I consider that a privilege, getting roasted by the younger guys, and so that was fun.
The hardest people to hang out with are those who, and oftentimes you wonder if it's a self-esteem issue. They like to pick on people. They like to, roast, as you might say. Yeah. But then if you try to roast them or you pick at them a little bit, you can tell they get serious. I'm serious about certain things, but when we're joking around and stuff, in fact, at our retreat, one of the pictures that was used for about 1,000 memes was a picture of me. And yet it was used for all sorts of stuff. And it was great. I loved it.
That's right.
It was not something to be serious about. I think you have to be able to make that differentiation of, I don't even know if that's a word. So
it sounds like a word to me. I remember we rolled up that morning super early, and I was like, well, Gandalf's here. It's time to go.
That's right. Well, hey, if you're a dad, then they gotta listen. Right. So start issuing punishment.
That's right.
Start discipline. Well, I do want to give, I forgot about this too. You were saying that. I do want to give a shout out to one of our cartels, Adam Bray. I did preach for him in Gray, Georgia at Elam Baptist Church on Sunday. And so they're much different church than us, but we're very kingdom minded at Hope Church. And so it was great to be with them, to see church done in a way I haven't seen in many, many years, but good people, very friendly. You wonder, hey, are they going to want this guy to come back? And several of the men at the end, even the ladies, were like, hey, you should come back sometime. So that meant a lot.
More traditional?
Very traditional, yes. And
dude, I find it like we got to be around traditional at some point, I know I love going to a church that I kind of grew up going to, and it's traditional, and then our church is not like that. And I go, and it's like, oh yeah, there's a creaking of the pew, and I got where now I enjoy. I look forward to traditional, and then singing a hymn, and
they sing three,
and do you sing like there's 4 stanzas? Do you do like 1 and 4?
They would mix it up, but then they would sing one and do something else, sing one and then do something else, and it was fun. 2 things that happened that were, one, so I don't wear dress clothes a lot, and I have 1 pair of suit pants, especially since I lost a bunch of weight. I've also been going to the gym, so the suit pants are a little more fitted, probably more form fitting and actually look like they fit me than anything I've ever owned. And so I invest a little bit of more money into them. They're a little nicer. Well, I haven't worn them in a while, and I've been going to the gym very consistently. Don't skip leg day. I don't skip leg day. And so I could have put them on, and they barely fit. Not in the waist, but in the legs, because I've gained such leg muscle. And I was able to wear them, thankfully, but I was like, please do not be sitting down on the
drumsticks, Nick. You got them drumsticks. No flats. Nick don't come with flats. He come with drumsticks.
But you got to start somewhere.
That's right. Let's go.
You got to have the drumstick before you get to the thigh. But it wasn't my thighs. But my biggest concern was I'm in this church and I go to sit down on the pew or something. My pant leg rips or something because it felt that tight. The other thing was they still, like, at the offering, they do the doxology afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the end, I keep forgetting the name of the song, but Jesus, sweetest name I know, something as I go. So Adam comes down front and he prays, or he says a few words after the message. They had done a hymn. Then he telling them stuff. So he gives the microphone to a guy to pray out. So he says, y'all have a great week. So then he goes to the back of the church to greet everybody as they exit. And so I'm standing there, the guy prays, and I was like, okay, it's over. So I start picking my stuff up and start to walk away from the pew. And the next thing I know, music starts up. I was like, oh, it must just be to play us out.
Play us out.
So I keep walking, and then they start singing again. I was like, whoops, I better turn and they were singing this little, I guess, outro song together about Jesus, Jesus, sweetest name I know. I don't know if they were singing it because it had the word go in it, and we were about to go. But that's where you go, hey, it might be good to go visit a traditional church every once in a while because I don't know what I'm doing.
Dude, yeah, man. You would think when the last prayer is the benediction, And so you're
I should have looked at the bulletin because they had everything written there.
The bulletin. You know that. I missed the bulletin.
Y'all don't have a bulletin?
No, we don't do bulletins. But I like the old school bulletins where it'll have like the stuff for student ministry in the back, and then it has the people who's going to pray, and
they had their security team. I was like, are you sure you want to list those names?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that.
But they have their ushers, and I know it's helpful for people to know who's doing what on a service, but it was different because I hadn't seen that in a while, so it's always good to kind of go back to your roots.
Here's Wednesday night, the food we're cooking Wednesday night dinners on Wednesday.
It's going to be pizza, by the way, for if anybody's listening to the Male Cartel from.
Right.
Now, I love you, Elam Baptist Church. If anybody's listening, I doubt it, but if you are, I had a great time. Thank y'all for being so hospitable. I enjoyed being with y'all.
So, do you want to get into anything?
Yeah, let's talk about the duties of a man.
You and I were talking, and I'm sure some guys have probably. Well, I'm just going to assume. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to assume, and I know what we get when we assume stuff. But I'm just assuming people have watched at some level, whether it's a trailer or a clip or something, to the TV show called The Band of Brothers from HBO. And it was a long time ago. I think it was like 2000, 2001 or 2 or something like that. Maybe it came out. And there's the way that it works, it's, again, assuming everybody has heard, but watched this before. But if you don't know, or just a refresher, they're just following the story of Easy Company, which was a group of men who were part of this airborne. And so it just shows reenactments, but it's all done in film. But it's kind of like a documentary at the same time, and so it's really, really done really well. It's about It's about Easy Company, and so in this, before each, I would say, part of the show for a season, in the very beginning of it, it shows the real life people who were in the war, and they were now, they're super old, and then they just briefly talk about something, and then it transitions right into the reenactment, I guess you could say. But it's done awesome. It won all these awards, and so I said, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna watch the show. I haven't watched this in literally 20 years, and I haven't seen all of them. But I remember watching the first probably 5 episodes, and so I ended up watching and the first one, and I just couldn't. I kept going back to what the guy said in the beginning, and they were just talking about going off the war. And how they knew what they signed up for. And they took it personal because America was attacked. This is World War II. And so they took it very seriously about fighting the war. And they wanted to do it. And I came up with that, man. I was like, man, these guys were bound by duty. They wanted to protect America. They even said that someone committed suicide in their town who couldn't join the military. And to enlist, and he wasn't allowed to because I guess health or something. And so that they took it so seriously, And so I was like, man, that's pretty wild, And just had me thinking about duty and a duty as a man. And so when I say all that stuff, what do you think? What comes to your mind?
Being that you started with a military show,
yeah.
I think if anybody understands military, it is our soldiers. It's our armed forces, and they understand, I think, that duty, and I think the responsibility, really duty, could also be said as responsibility.
Yeah.
It's our responsibility. Yeah. There's a video that I saw the other day, and of course I'm going to draw a blank on his name. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
What's his name?
Star-Lord. Chris Pratt.
I was about to ask
Look at it.
Producer Carell.
What is Chris
Producer
Pratt? if we were on Jeopardy.
Yeah, so Chris Pratt was talking, and he was sharing that very thing. And he was talking about people being stuck in TikTok in their own world, and how essentially our country needs them to step up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if this generation doesn't step up and understand that there's a duty and like a responsibility to defend, our values, to defend our freedoms, to defend this country, then what are we going to have?
Yeah.
And yet we see a decline in that. And so I think there's multiple things, and that's where early when we were talking about, all right, what are we going to talk about this episode? I was thinking through what is that duty of a man? What does that look like? I think the first thing that you and I could probably agree on, and once again, this isn't like a church podcast, but being men of faith, pastors, Christians, Christ followers, I think the very first thing is that a man's duty, his responsibility, is not only to lead himself, but also to lead his family in following Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think that if we're going to be leaders, we have to be able to be led.
Yeah.
Integrity is you only call people to where you've been.
Uh-huh.
You lead them to where you've already gone. You've already kind of blazed that path. I don't care if it's a step or 2 steps ahead, but you're leading the way, and you're saying, hey, come this way because I've come this way. So I think it starts with us first. We have to pursue Jesus. We have to yield ourselves to a greater, to the greater one in God. And then we call our family to do the same, and we call others to do the same. So I would say the first thing would be in chasing Jesus and pursuing Jesus. I'd love to hear your thought on that as well, because I know you're passionate about that as I am.
Yeah, 100%. If you're a believer, then that's your number one role. I mean, that's it. You step into faith, and since we're on faith, and like you said, this is not a big. It is a faith podcast. I mean, because this is who we are.
Right.
But not to get preachy with it, but like you're part of the family business, which is kingdom business when you come into faith, and so you should be leading your family, and it really I always think the best gift you can give your children. People want to give their kids iPods, and not iPods. iPods is like extinct now. Well, I don't even want.
We just flash back to like the early 2000s,
bro. Like with the anti-skip. Yeah, I mean, might as well say a tape deck. You want to give your kids a tape deck
with the orange headphones.
Yeah,
the fuzzy foam headphones.
Yeah, you're like, but if you want to give
my kid an 8-track,
give your kid, so if you give your kid you can give your kid an 8-track, you can give him a tape deck, you can give him a Discman, anti-skip, of course. You can give him all those things. You can give him technology. You can give him a phone. You can give him all this stuff. But the greatest gift that you can give your kid is a parent that is chasing Jesus, because out of the overflow of that is what everything else is going to come. But too many people, I know a lot of men, and I know you as well, is that I think they want to chase perfection, and that's a wrong thing to chase. I mean, you should just chase Jesus, seek first the kingdom of God, and I think that's a priority. I think that's a duty, and then everything else kind of lines up, and how you and from that, I promise you get close to God. Then the way you treat your wife is different, because obviously you're evangelizing yourself every day. You're remembering the gospel, and so that will help you to be more generous, more patient. Obviously, fruit of the Spirit. You're lining yourself up with that, and so and it will come out how you raise your babies. And but I think for some men, they'll probably just chase perfection, or feel like it's so daunting, And but we do live in a world of comfort right now. And comfort is king, and so that's an opponent, Nick. That's a real life opponent in today's culture. And I would say probably one other thing that I feel like when it comes to duty, and we talked about this a lot, and it is taking care of your family, just being responsible.
Sure.
And so, what are some other thoughts that you have?
Well, I mean, we've talked about I think when taking care of your family, that could probably be summarized in 2 things, and that's provide and protect.
Yeah.
We've talked about the protect, and so people can go back and
2 P's, Nick.
Right,
P's. 2 P's.
We need one more for 3 P's in a poem or whatever, however that
3
goes.
3 P's in a pod,
with
bro.
The pastor. Right.
In a podcast.
There we go. We got producer Carell, so he can he can give us the 3rd P.
Okay.
We talked about protect. People go back to episode 1, talking about being dangerous men, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in different facets throughout the podcast. So I think that's number 1. And I'll tell you, somebody challenged me. So I don't know. I haven't for a while done a good job of like opening a door for my wife to get in the car. I do for going into places, things like that. But then someone challenged me. This is part of, I think it goes back to the faith part. Like we have to, if we're going to be teachable, one of the greatest things I was ever told as a young man was to remain teachable.
Yeah.
You don't know as much as you think you know.
100%.
People know more than you think they know. So to remain teachable. And I think following Jesus keeps me teachable to go, I need someone leading me. Not only is he Lord and Savior, but it's me yielding and kind of humbling myself to another because I need to learn and grow in God's way. But it was like, what if someone were to come up as you're getting in the car, you're comfortable in your seat getting situated, and someone comes up and basically, snatches your wife's purse or, were to do some harm, where are you going to be at? You're going to be in the car.
Yeah.
You're not there to protect. And so that was challenging. And so it was a little odd for when I'm opening the door for Nikki because she hadn't seen me do that in a while. And what are you doing? I was like, well, I need to be here in case someone were to harm you, know? And so I'm looking at people. I said, see, that guy got a little too close, And so while I'm making it humorous, it was challenging to me. And I think that's what this whole podcast is about, is we want to challenge guys to get better. And I have to get better. I've got to grow. And then I think the other is providing for your family, doing what it takes to provide financially, putting a roof over your head, putting groceries on the table, the basic needs, not always the wants.
All right, let me pause right there. I'm just going to cut you off. I remember.
Don't cut me too hard.
Huh?
Don't cut me too hard.
I'll cut you hard. All right, listen. I distinctively remember there was a time where we were serving alongside each other. You probably remember. You will remember this, I'm sure. But I'm old. You picked another job up because things were tight, and I think you were washing windows during Christmas time.
Yep.
And I don't think I've ever told you, but this is like, how many years ago was this, Nick? This has got to be at least like 14.
Yeah, because we've lived in our house 13. I was living in my old house, so it was 14, 15 years old.
So we'll just say I think it's probably more like 15.
Washing windows at the mall.
Yeah, so I remember that set such a good tone. Now, to give you some context to those who are listening, you and people, I didn't have any kids yet. Okay, because y'all started having kids. Y'all got married at like 14, and so you started having all these kids. And
they're like the gypsies with child brides.
And you're like, I mean, fruit will multiply, and you did all biblically, you like you're supposed to. And so, but I remember you doing that, bro. And I know that the example that it set for me, always been a hard worker, all that. But as someone who was older, but yet haven't had any kids yet, you set that example for me just to do whatever needs to get done. And it was to help provide for Christmas. I think it was something like that. And it was during the holidays, and you needed extra money, and you worked a regular job. Here's the other thing too, if you're listening, man. And Nick, you served in the local church. It wasn't like you called out, but like, I'm so tired today, and so I don't feel too good. I got a sniffle. You served on Wednesdays. Like literally, you served on Sundays.
I got a hangnail.
And so you got a hangnail. There's a lot of guys that are weenies. So if you hear this, I'm going to tell you, suck it up, okay? Everybody's got allergies right now. Suck it up, okay? You can't walk around all like you just go get some Claritin and you'll be fine, And take care of your body, drink plenty of fluids, and don't eat a bunch of junk food. Like,
quit
take care
crying.
of yourself.
Kleenexes are for the sniffles, not for
100%. You should not be out of work or out of church serving King Jesus because you have some allergies or you have the crud and you feel bad. Nah, you need to go there. As long as you're not contagious, you're fine. Let's go. Right. Roll in. So, but you served, you worked 40 hours, and you served the local church, and you had a family, and on top of that, at night, you went to do whatever you needed to do to make money for your family. And so, and I thought about that during Christmas time this year for me. I guess not this year, but last year, I worked at FedEx. I took vacation days because I had some goals. I wanted to make some extra money, and so I did it because we had some goals. And so, but you set that example for me. So I just want to say publicly, thank you. And so, but you were willing to do whatever you need to do to make it happen, dude. And that's still, I'm telling you, man, somebody didn't have kids, man. I watched,
Well,
so,
that's what, we want to invest in dads and we want to invest in grandpas even, because where did I learn that? I learned that from the OG, Tim Carnes, my dad.
the goat.
I also learned it from General Jack Carnes, my grandpa,
Oh.
who they did what was necessary. You know, my dad served in ministry, didn't make a lot of money when he was full-time in the ministry, but that's what he was called to do, using his gifts in that way. That's part of our duty. Not everybody's called to full-time ministry, but that's what he felt called to. And I remember the same way he would go take a third shift job working at Wendy's or Burger King. Also, in between that, he's building computers or repairing computers for people, all to make sure we had what we need. Now, we didn't have all the luxuries. We didn't have the greatest of everything. You know, if I had name brand clothes, it was because it was passed down from my older cousin who didn't like them. So they're already like rejects. And then on top of it, it was, you know, that's what I had that was name brand. I remember buying my first Nikes in 9th or 10th grade, and they were from Goody Two Shoes. $35.
Goody Two Shoes.
Goody Two Shoes. And they were the ugliest, but they were Nikes. You know, it was like name brand. The sole of the shoe looked like the basketball court.
Uh-huh.
And I probably was laughed at and made fun of, but that to me, it was huge because I always had like the Silver Series Walmart specials.
Uh-huh.
So
you had to be wearing those Jordache, bro. You had the Cougars. They're like Puma, but they're not.
Back then it was, I had Wrangler. Wrangler now, I mean, some of the Wrangler jeans
that's
can.
in style, bro.
Oh, man.
And Starter is the reject. Remember how Starter used to be like king, and now it's.
And Champion was cheap.
And now Champion.
It's
like,
crazy.
What is happening?
We made it cool because that's
all we had.
That's all we had. So, but that was, they taught me the duty of providing for my family.
Yeah.
And you may not always have the greatest, but you have what you need. And, you know, there's times we ate Vienna sausages and that was it. You know, that we ate eggs one time when my dad was pastoring a church forever. You know, just like Bubba Gump shrimp, and you know they could find 1,000 ways to eat shrimp. We could find 1,000 ways to eat eggs because they were cheap then. So my grandpa, my dad, and I think that's part of what we're doing this podcast for is to inspire men to teach the next generation and the younger guys coming before us.
Yeah, and you know, and I think I've seen this lately in response to what you just said, that there's a lot of men, husbands, and even single guys too, like honestly, and I know some single guys who are single, but they're like living with a female. And I still think they're you know, if you're listening, you live with a female, go ahead and just marry her. You know what I mean? Stop being lame and scared
100%.
for commitment. Just marry her. Be a man and marry her. And take responsibility. And don't get mad right now. If you're listening, you get your feelings all hurt. You know, I guess Male Cartel will send you some napkins or something. Look in your glove box. Get some napkins.
Please listen to the end so we can get a full episode.
Yeah, full episode. Don't cut us off yet. I think there's a lot of people who they look for recognition and they want a trophy or some applause when they do what they were supposed to do. You understand what I'm saying? Like they want something like, well, I did this, so I should get a reward. Or hey, look at me.
Doing the basics.
Yeah, you're doing what you're supposed to do. You shouldn't look for recognition of doing what you're supposed to do. You know, because that's just what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So there's an expectation, and so that's when somebody, you know, looks for the trophy or the, you know, whatever, the applause, or want their spouse to really notice, then I think that you're already on rocky ground. Does that make sense? What's your thought on that?
I was just gonna say, guys, your spouse isn't gonna always notice. You're not always gonna notice. They're not always gonna notice. And I think it goes back to Stoicism, and you know, I don't know if you've seen that thing about how many times guys throughout the day think about the Roman Empire. Has been going around.
Somebody just mentioned that when I was at this conference about it. I was like, I don't remember the Roman Empire a whole lot, but I do think about Vietnam and stuff.
Yeah, well,
maybe it was Rambo.
You know, so women are like asking their husbands, like, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? But their Stoicism was kind of part of that, and that, you know, goes into, this is my responsibility, this is my duty, this is the basics of what I'm supposed to do, the necessities, and if you don't get recognized, you still do it. If you don't feel like it, you do it.
Yeah.
If your feelings are hurt, you do it. Like the things you're supposed to do, you do no matter how you feel, because people don't care how you feel, especially guys. I mean, you know, women care how women feel. Men just, there's all kinds of stuff out there where like, hey, who, when you're down, who do you call? No one cares. I mean, that's how men feel, or that's just the reality for men. They have no one, but yet who cares? Who cares what people think about how you feel? You have a responsibility.
Yeah.
You get up, you go to work, you take care of responsibility. The car's broke down, you stay up late through the night to make sure it's fixed. That's the other thing my dad taught me. Starter needed to be fixed. We were out till 1, 2, 3 a.m. I had school the next morning. But guess what? I'm learning a trade by handing tools, and he's showing me how to do this and that. And so as other guys are learning how to change a tire in 10th grade, I'm changing my own starter, changing my own alternator, because my dad carried me into that. This is a responsibility.
Yeah.
And so we got to take care of it. And so, yeah, it's that stoicism, being a stoic, and look, I'm just going to do what I got to do, regardless of if I get recognition, regardless if I get a pat on the back. I might come home from a hard day, and if my wife doesn't go, oh, what's going on? Are you okay? That's just not going to happen a lot. So you just kind of keep doing it. And I think that goes to the other, and I want to hear what you have to say on this before I say any more, but it goes back to figure it out. Badger's Killian on his podcast talking about FIO, figure it out. I was thinking, how could you reterm that? You could even reterm it as find a way, FAW. I think that's part of our duty as a men to find a way. What do you think about that? Like, do you see that as a duty, as a responsibility? Because I think that's what we've been talking about with working 2 and 3 jobs if you have to.
That's right.
You find a way.
You find a way, dude. Yeah. When you said that, I first think about, I'm gonna go to a movie. I like movies. I think there was a movie called The Revenant, and it had Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
Yeah.
And it's about Hugh Glass back in the 1800s, and then and how the movie portrays it's about a dad with a son, and anyways he gets stranded on a mountain after being killed by a bear and left to die by a bunch of guys who were like supposed to be their friends, but they were like bandits. Don't want to ruin the movie for you, but it's a pretty good movie.
Is that the one where he cuts open the animal and
he climbs inside? Yeah, he was willing to do whatever he needed to do. He found a way to make it back to civilization. And then he got, not saying you have to have vengeance, but then at the end of the movie, like he killed the guy that killed his son. But he was willing to survive, doing anything by any means, like to survive. I mean, climbing in a dead carcass. Eating dead food. As being clawed by a bear and left to die and falling off of a cliff and broken bones and everything else. He finds a way through, and it's wintertime too, bro. So willing to do whatever needs to be done, and you find a way. And I think that, and so if you're a dad, if you modeling that mentality speaks volumes, because your kids remember more what you do than what you say, and so even if they're young and they don't really understand, when they get older, they understand fully. It becomes like that picture that it's all pixelated, and then it clears up a little bit and clears up and clears up, and sooner or later you got some HD version of what your dad did for you, and modeling, willing to do whatever needs to get done. And so I think find a way. I think that's huge as a man. But that is missing in our culture today, because men want to escape the responsibility. And there's a lot of different angles and studies that have shown that. But I agree.
Button.
Yeah, easy button, bro.
I do want to rewind, because you said Leonardo in the Revenant or whatever that movie was, he ate dead food. Tell me about that.
Yeah, he
What's
ate
dead food.
Dead food. Did I make any sense when I said dead food?
He said he ate dead food. I was just wondering.
Oh yeah, all food is dead.
That was like our episode. Ken, one of the cartel, was pointing out. We were talking about, hey, when guys have to say, to be honest, on front, and then honest. He said, if I'm being honest.
That's right. That's so funny.
Dude, he didn't mean it in the way that I've meant it.
That's right. That's right.
I was just wondering about this dead food. I was like,
food that was dead. He ate food that was dead. Listen,
already dead, like a rotten carcass.
A rotten carcass.
Okay.
Now listen, some of you guys, I'm just gonna say, some of you guys, when you eat a steak, I'm not the guy who eats a steak that's like still bleeding. You know what I mean? Like there's blood everywhere. Yeah, I get it medium, where there's a little bit of pink, and I like that pink. But I saw a guy one time eating a steak on a white plate, and literally it looked like he had a blood transfusion. It was so much. It looked like Interview with a Vampire. If there's a vampire in the room, something's about to go down, bro. I want to give him a syringe. I mean, give him some gauze or something. I was like, did he cut his artery in his wrist when he was cutting a steak?
He was cutting a steak, cut his finger off.
That's just a steak.
I just didn't know if we were supposed to go eat the cow while it was alive, because when you said dead food, I was like, oh man, am I doing this food thing wrong?
Yeah, I guess you can eat a plant if it's still in the ground and you just start gnawing on it. It's still technically alive. Yeah, maybe so.
What really made me think about that before I even heard Badris talk about it was there was a reel, and other people may have seen it, that popped up, and guy was talking very, pretty direct, and he's like, you know what, I may not have 6 people to carry my casket when I die, but I got one close friend, one person who would drag it, would carry it until his legs gave out. And I was really thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, I mean, like, if something happened to Shane, and you've got plenty of people who would carry your casket, but if not, I would drag that thing, even though you're bigger than me.
Let's go.
I would drag it as far as I could to get it to where it needed to go. And I was thinking like my family. I was like, if my son or sons or daughter, if any of my children were stuck up on a mountain, my wife, and they're hurt, they're injured, or something were to happen to them, I would find a way to get them to help, or find a way to get them off of that mountain, no matter what condition they were in. You would just find a way. You're not going to be like, you know what? That's my kid. I'm just going to leave them, even if something happened to them tragically to where they were to have died. You wouldn't go, well, I guess we'll just come try to visit them, once every year or so, where we leave them laying. No, you would want to get them off the mountain.
And it's easier. It would be easier to do that too if you're a capable man.
Yes, 100%. Right.
Yeah, because if you're like healthy, and like you take care of your responsibility, you take care of all that, you would have a better chance of doing what you're supposed to do. You're more capable.
And that's why we could probably make this a 2-part series, or come back to it at another time, because I think there's so many things. I think it is a duty of us to be capable. It's a duty of ours to be physically fit to the point that we can provide, defend, we can find a way. Because if you're physically unable, you can't find a way.
Yeah.
And yet so many people are physically unable, yet they're able to be physically able, and yet they just choose not to. Yeah. And they're not fulfilling their responsibility and their duty. We long forget we were not designed to sit behind desks. We were designed, and the way that we had to do things many years ago was you had to hunt for your food. You had to go gather it. You had to physically, not just get in your car and drive to McDonald's and drive back to the office, but you had to physically go on the hunt. Yeah. You had to physically be able to chase, run down, climb trees, to catch animals by surprise. I mean, there was a physical ability in order to survive, and our technology and things like that have taken all that away. We can't. A lot of people can't do those things anymore. So I totally agree. You got to be capable.
Yeah. And I think just that escaping that responsibility is just something that we really have to address. Even if you feel like you're doing a pretty good job, I know it's really just hearing you speak makes me reevaluate some things, even my own life, going, what am I doing right now that I could do a better job at in regards to, taking care of my responsibility as a man, what I believe that God has entrusted with me, and which is my family, 2 boys, daughter, the things that are in front of me. What's in front of me is my responsibility. That's, which is obviously the church that I serve in, but also with the sports teams and things like that. And it's really causing me to think now as I'm just sitting here. And I hope that if you're listening, that you would be challenged as well in that, like asking yourself, like, how can I do a better job in this? And you mentioned teachability and and all that. And so hopefully we're not escaping the responsibility, and sometimes sometimes it's seasonal, Nick, and like when you're just in a rut, and you just got to get out, and the best way to start getting out of the rut is start climbing.
Yes.
As a man, not just sit there and go, listen, I'm in a rut right now. I fall into this, ditch. How do I get out? Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna figure. You know what you need to do? Claw your way out.
Right.
Claw. I don't care if you get dirt on your nails and you look gross doing it and you may get hurt in the process climbing out. You got to climb out. And so you got to get to moving. You got to
and I think there's times we have to challenge ourselves.
Yeah.
You only grow in challenge.
Yeah.
When you're challenged, when there's adversity, you don't grow in comfort.
Tension creates strength. Yep.
Right. And you don't grow when everything is going the way that is, successful and comfortable. So there are times that you have to, I was telling our leadership team this the other day, like sometimes we need to challenge ourselves. We need to almost create adversity. I think that's one of the things, going to the gym and stuff that you're able to do is challenge yourself. Okay, I've been doing this amount of weight for so long. Now I want to step it up. I want to increase the weight. I want to increase the reps, increase the sets, whatever that is. You're constantly challenging yourself to break out of a comfort level. So whether it's something like the gym or whether it's something outside of that, it's like, okay, what can I do to break out of my comfort zone?
Yeah.
So that I can grow, I can do something. I know there's a lot of men who are like, every year I'm going to do something that challenges me. It may be running a marathon. Well, I can't run a marathon. Well, there you go. That's your limit to where you've already limited yourself, but yet you can.
Yep.
Or what can't you do that you want to challenge yourself to do? And if you fall short, okay, you fell short, but you tried.
Yeah.
And what if you did a half a marathon?
Yeah.
Had you not set out to do the marathon, you wouldn't have gotten to the half marathon.
Yep.
So I think we have to challenge ourselves. We have to climb out of the hole. We have to fight.
Yep. Dude, yeah, I 1000% agree. And I'd say this, I mean, like even that, like if you're struggling financially as a man and you're just thinking about your finances, hey, then all right, just man up. I mean, that could be, different term to use, but like look at your finances. How can you cut corners? If you don't have some things that you really want to have, what are you going to what are you willing to do to get what you need to do? Or is there, and for sometimes that should means like working another job, and sometimes it's cutting back because maybe you got too much. You kind of got too much on your plate. You're too fat. You know what I mean, Nick? Like you got all those carbs on your plate, just use a metaphor with food, but like look at your life, and even like because I think that because you've been blessed, I think you should be a blessing to other people too. And that's what I think you and I are like, just want this podcast to be a blessing to people to where they could be encouraged and strengthened. And for some of y'all hear this and you go like, yeah, you're doing a good job. You're like, hey, I get this. This is just puts a little bit of hitch in your giddy up because you already know this. For some other people, maybe it just challenge you to maybe take seriously your relationship with your wife, pursue her. When's the last time like you told her that you love her and you looked at her in the eyes and you actually meant it? Or like hold her hand or whatever it works for your wife. I don't know. But like, and your kids, listening to what they, what's going on.
We went to a marriage retreat several years ago, and one of the speakers made couples look at each other in the eyes for 5 minutes straight.
Man.
It was the most awkward, stupid thing.
Dude, I couldn't do that.
And then he would like chastise people who like weren't doing it. It was weird.
What was that name of that retreat? Can you say?
Yeah. Because it was part of Hope Church, but it was a speaker they brought in, so it wasn't all. I think they got credit, like they got blamed for it, for the weirdness.
But it was just the speaker.
It's the Fall in Love marriage retreat that we do with Hope Church, but it was the speaker who was just like, "No, I want y'all to look at each other," and I forget his point, but 5 minutes.
Oh man,
it's like, all right, this is a little weird.
Come on, bro.
So, I mean, because of time, we could talk probably 2 hours on this.
Yep.
I mean, there's things we could talk about. Being a man of your word, we'll definitely talk about that in the future. Being a servant, taking that, you just kind of hit on that, what we've been blessed with, and serving others. The scripture says it's more blessed to give than to receive. And I heard someone make a take on that the other day about money is not the root of all evil. It's the love of money, but money does bring happiness, because the moment you have enough money that you can start being generous to other people, you bring happiness, and it creates happiness.
That's good, dude.
Very good perspective. So we could talk about that. That same guy talks about being a savage servant, and there's times to be savage, and then there's times that we're called to be servants. So there's a lot of stuff, and so I think with this we could start wrapping it up now because of time. But those who have joined us on our socials, once this episode is live, we'll put it out there and kind of put a question. What are some of the things we overlooked specifically when it comes to the duties of a man.
Yeah.
I'm not talking, there's a lot of things about how to be a successful man and those type of things. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about the duties. Like the bare minimal, like as a man, this is our responsibilities.
Like the foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also, if you want, because we could do a second part of this, you can go to contact@malecartel.com, email us, contact@malecartel.com, and throw out some of those duties, because we're not covering them all today because of time. I know some people will say, oh, you forgot this or you forgot that. Yes, unless you want to listen for 2 hours. We don't have 2 hours. But email us and let us know some of those things. We'll tackle them in an episode. And then join us on socials. We are on Twitter. We're on Threads, Facebook, and Instagram, all under Male Cartel. Love to have you continue the conversation. Help us share the post and things. That's how we're going to build the cartel. And then, as we've talked about before, if you're enjoying this, the best way to show gratitude and really towards the show and the best co-host, Shane Padgett.
Oh,
don't worry about me.
That's Nicholas Carnes.
We have a lot of listeners. That the podcast thing tracks how many listeners we have, people who have subscribed. We have a lot of people who have subscribed to the show. They're frequent listeners, same IP address and all that, but have not left a review, have not left a rating or anything like that. So that would be huge if they could do that.
Yeah, help us out.
But we are continuously showing up on the charts, especially as we have a live episode. So thank you so much. We rank on average when we have an episode that's live, 153, I think, out of the entire nation. And we've been as high as 47. So we've been in the top 50. But we hover right now about 153 on the charts, which is still huge because this is our 5th episode.
Have we passed Satan yet?
Not yet.
No. Listen, there's a Satan podcast, and we've got to pass it, guys. You got to help. We're a cartel. We've got to pass that. So
it is called Hail Satan.
So we got to pass Hail Satan, right?
HIL, like Hail Satan.
So let's make that happen. That would be awesome.
The only way that's going to happen is if you will take the link to these shows, whether it's Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, whatever, and share it and build the listeners.
Yep.
That's the only way. And the other thing, the other rating is the way they do the charts is ratings and reviews. That does go into that score. So that does help if people do that.
Well, before you close it down, I'm just going to bring something up really, really quick, and then we'll let you close it out. But we something was brought to light to our attention as of late in regards to animals we talked about before that were like manly animals.
Yes.
And so we had overlooked a small animal, and that's probably, if we're going to be completely honest, why we probably didn't, because its first name is Honey, and that's sweet, but it's not sweet. It's not a sweet animal. It's called a honey badger.
But you did. So, I thought you did.
Did I mention it?
Yeah, it was like your 5th one. You mentioned it because I said wolf on my 5th, and for your 5th, because we were talking about
and I
Dr.
said honey
B.
badger. Oh man, that's so awesome.
But I said we need to probably move it up because of that video.
It has to be at least 3, bro. It has to be top 3.
That joker took on 3
leopards
on
that video. So I would say honey badger, sweet and everything, it's going to move up to at least 3rd. It has to be 3rd on the list, and it could track up a little bit higher, because it's kind of ornery. So right now,
I'll try to find that video because I think I shared it in the messenger, so I'll be able to get the link. We'll share that on our socials once this episode goes live so that they can see just how bad a honey badger is.
Yeah. Too tough, bro. Too tough.
That was awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation.
Yep.
It's something that, once again, I think a lot of people will benefit from, but also may have their own thoughts on. So I'd love to hear from them. So other than that, thank y'all for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. And as we always say, get 1% better today and every day.
Peace.
Thank you for joining the Male Cartel podcast. Be sure to subscribe and share to help other men join the cartel. You can also keep up with us on social media and at malecartel.com.